Hey folks, I'm Steve Voigt, maker of Voigt Planes. Today I'm going to talk about how to make a natural resin varnish made from plants and trees, similar to what I put on my hand planes. This kind of varnish was really popular in the 18th and 19th centuries, and it basically died out in the middle of the 20th century, which makes it appropriate for planes, because this kind of plane basically died out in the middle of the 20th century as well. I'm gonna embed this video in a blog post I'm writing on how to make Copal varnish, so make sure that you check out the blog post. The video is going to be kind of short on explanation and long on demonstration, so the ingredients, how many ounces and stuff like that will be in the blog post and not so much in the video. So to start out, let me just say a few words about what's varnish, and because I think that word means different things to different people. So the varnish that I put on my planes is kind of a low gloss, low luster, very thin coat. It doesn't look that different from an oil finish. So if I hold it up, you can see it's got some reflectivity, but it's very, very satin, right? Take a look. You can see the back of the handle. It's got a little shine, but not much, and the coat thickness is very, very thin. Here's a sample made from the same ingredients. Let's see if I can get this to do the right. There we go. So you can see the reflection of the window behind me. This is an almost mirror finish. It's something that you might want to put on a table or a chest of drawers or something, and rub out the finish. So one of the nice things about a natural resin varnish is that it can mean whatever you want it to mean. It can be, something that's barely distinguishable from an oil finish, or it can mean that sort of old-fashioned, really, high luster, glossy, glass-like finish. Let me talk about the ingredients. There's three main ingredients in a natural resin varnish. The first is tree resin. In this case, I'm using Copal resin, Congo Copal, which comes from Africa. Next is linseed oil. This is some linseed oil, cold pressed linseed oil that I've refined and heat treated, and I go into that in an earlier blog post that you can find on my blog. And then the last is turpentine. The best turpentine you can get is from Diamond G Forest Products in Georgia. This stuff is not quite as good. It's decent. It's some turpentine I got off eBay, shipped from Portugal. It's cheaper than the Diamond G. It's pretty good. The worst turpentine that you can use is the stuff that you get from the hardware store. You might as well not bother. Don't make varnish out of that stuff. If you really want to save some money, use a little bit of good turpentine and then cut it with mineral spirits, and that will be a better result than using the stuff from the hardware store, like Clean Strip or whatever it is, which just smells awful and is not going to give you a good result. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do to get started is to take some of this resin and clean it. So that's what we're going to do first. So we're dealing with a natural resin here, something that fell off a tree a long time ago and has been on the ground or excuse me, buried under the ground for a while. So these resins aren't clean. Let me pour the resins out. Let's take a look at what we got. So some of this stuff, like if you look at this one, right? It's like almost like glass. It's like a very pale amber glass. Some of it, like this one here, pretty dark, and it's got a lot of crap in it, seemingly. Some of the resin is, let's see if I can pick out a piece here. So like a piece like this looks pretty good, but it's got all kinds of corrosion on it, right? So all we need to do now is just get some of this junk off. So I just use an old Sloyd knife and just kind of scrape away at it. And the pieces that are already clean, don't need to really do anything with. So I don't know if you can see that there. You can see where I scraped at it. Let me try another spot here. Yeah, so if you look there, you can see where I scraped away the oxidation. That looks pretty good. So basically I'll just sit here, you know, for a while. You know, a piece like this one looks good, so just drop it in there. So I just need to go through these resins, pick out the good pieces, scrape the other pieces. A piece like this one right here, you can see it's oxidized on that side. That side's a little clearer. That side's really looks pretty nice. So I won't do much with this, just a little superficial scraping. It's really just the like chunks that you need to get out. You know, here's a good example. You can see there's some big dark chunks. So I'll basically just cut those out, chip those out. So it'll take me, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to go through this. I've got a ½ pound of resin here. So I'll do that and then we'll come back, take a look. There's one more thing we have to do before we can start actually cooking our varnish, and that is we have to break the copal up into smaller pieces. If you look at some of these pieces, like, you know, this one here, it's good sized lump, and actually this is pretty small as copal goes. You can get like fist size, you know, or like baseball sized lumps of copal. So, and we want it to be more like, I don't know, something between the size of a pea and a grape, basically. Now you're probably thinking, oh, well, why don't you just put it in a plastic bag, Steve, and then take a hammer and smash it, you know, into powder. You don't want to do that. If you check out some of these old varnish books from the 19th century, in particular, there's a book by Mackintosh that's really helpful. And it explains that if you powder the copal, it forms sort of a sticky, gelatinous mass. It won't melt, or it'll melt, but you really have to crank up the temperature. And so it turns dark. So you want to avoid that unless you want a really dark varnish. So what you have to do is crack these pieces, or break these pieces into smaller chunks without powdering them. In the book that I just mentioned, there's actually a picture. I'll try to put it on my blog. There's a picture of a device called a gum cracker, and it's actually a table-mounted thing with a lever that you use to crack the gums. So obviously I don't have one of those. But if you look at the picture of the gum cracker, it looks a lot like these, only maybe like, it looks a lot like this, only table-mounted. So these are just a pair of pincer pliers, and these are the best thing I've found by far for cracking the copal. So if I take this piece, there, just breaks really easy, nice and clean, no mess. Now, you don't want to do what I just did. There's just one other thing you want to do, which is you don't want pieces of copal flying all over the place. So take a bucket, put your pincer pliers around your piece of copal, and break your copal into smaller pieces. So, piece of cake, just do that. And that's really all there is to it. So I'm going to go ahead and break up the rest of this copal. This will take me 5-10 minutes, and then we'll be ready to actually start cooking this stuff.